What you're looking at is the Phoenix design. It is a broader wing glider than the basic, Dart, the classic Dart idea. So it's got some positive dihedral here, a lot of weight forward. You can see the folds here, a lot of weight toward the nose, broad wing here, a bit of up elevator to counter that forward center of gravity. That's how all gliders work. We'll talk about that at the very end here. But let's get going on the folding of the Phoenix. The first thing we're going to do is make a diagonal fold. That's taking the top of the page and putting it against the side of the page. I like to do it like this. I like to move it over and slowly squeeze down, not making a crease yet until I get that corner lined up. And then once I find the corner, then I can just kind of pivot the edge until it lines up with the lower layer edge. Hold that and then sweep from the top of the page to the bottom of the page. And I find most of the time I don't sweep from one end to the other on a fold like that, because you end up adding errors. But on this one, getting that corner nailed down and then sweeping is kind of important. Now I missed the corner just a little bit. So what do you do if you miss a corner? What do you do if you just miss a crease? Well, early on like this, you just make an adjustment. So I just missed the corner a little bit. I'm gonna pull this layer down until the corner lines up perfectly. Again, I'm gonna press that down, and I'm just not gonna give it a choice. I'm gonna press it down and hold it right there, and then line that up and remake that crease. So that was just a tiny bit off at the corner. And so the technique was to pull this down. You could do it the other way. You could push it up if you missed on the other side, but I want a really tight corner there, and that's just good practice. So if I had missed like this, and the top layer was just a little bit short, I would pull down like I did. If I miss the other way, if I miss this way and the top layer is too long, like that, I would push it back up. Now, you can see I've put 3 creases in the paper here in pretty short order, but I'm not gonna worry about that because it's early on in the plane and it's not gonna make a big difference. I'm gonna end up burying these folds. So if you make a couple of adjustment creases early on, it doesn't end up being that big of a deal. And it's way better to get it right off the start. Okay, so I'm gonna unfold this and I'm gonna make a diagonal fold the other direction. I'm gonna take the top and put it against this side. And again, I'm gonna use my diagonal fold technique here. I'm gonna find that corner, hold it down, pivot the edges together here, hold it tight, and then sweep from the top to the bottom. How did I do on that corner? That corner came out great. No adjustment necessary. That's great. So I'm gonna open that up. I've got a big X on the page, and now I'm gonna take this side, the right-hand side, and put it against the diagonal crease right here. And it's just gonna come over. I'm just gonna lay that whole edge over all the way down to where the crease meets the edge of the page. And I'm gonna take my time and I'll line it up all along the edge here. And I'm just lining up this edge with that crease. I can just barely see the crease, and all the way along there, all the way down to this corner here. And then I'm gonna slowly flatten this. And again, I'm gonna start in the middle of the crease and sweep up, start in the middle of the crease and sweep down. That way I'm not adding errors all the way from one side to the other. And you get a nice tight fit right along that crease there. Now, I could unfold this to do the other side, but the way this particular plane works out, I know that I can take this corner crease and put it right at the end of this crease, and everything else is gonna line up really nicely. Again, started at the center, swept down, start at the center and sweep up. That's just good folding practice. Let's get in the middle, starting in the middle, get in the practice of starting in the middle of your crease and sweeping both directions. You'll have less errors adding up. Now, you can see some of the some of the creases here, that the early creases that I made just to kind of demonstrate mistakes. I actually did make a mistake. Even a pro makes a mistake occasionally. So we're going to now follow this big crease here, the really definite one that we ended up with. And I'm going to fold down, just straight down along that crease. Something that's not obvious, something that I'm doing here that you might not notice, is I'm holding these layers down with my thumbs as I'm moving this layer over, and that's to keep the wings nice and flat. I'm just kind of pushing those up just to make sure that that crease stays honestly where it's supposed to be. And I'm gonna get a little bubbling here. We're gonna address that at some point. We're gonna do a sweeping move to flatten that out. You want your wings to stay flat. But right now, we're just gonna let that happen. So now we're gonna make a center crease. And a lot of people wonder why you don't make a center crease first. A lot of people prefer to make the center crease first. I don't like that, because if you make that center crease, you've got a definite place that layers will slip and slide to one side. And again, you'll end up with more bubbling on one side than the other. It's just, it's like building in a way for errors to be created. So I don't like that. I like to wait as long as I can to do the center crease. So this is what we're doing here. So I'm going to flip it over and rotate it so the short edge is pointed to the left. And I'm going to fold it in half. And I'm going to pay particular attention to the rear corners. This is going to be the back of the plane. All of the fine tuning happens right here at the back of the plane. You know, left, right, turning, up, down, all of that happens there. So I'm going to line up the front corners, line up the back corners. The middle corners, I'm going to note, but I'm not going to really stress out about getting those guys perfect. So here we go, our fold in half. Let's get these rear corners lined up nicely. Kind of hold that down. Try to get the front corners lined up. Might have to work with this edge right here. And I'm going to press that. Again, go back here, make sure that's good. Now that I've got that pressed, I'm going to start in the center of the fuselage crease, sweep to the rear, start in the center, press flat, and sweep to the left there. And so, again, every time you make a crease, think about less error adding up. That's the main thing. Okay, so this one actually turns out pretty flat on this side. I'm going to give it a little sweep anyway. I'm going to start right here at this corner and sweep up just to make sure it's nice and flat. I'll flip it over. I got a little more bubbling on this side than the other side. Once again, let's start at this corner. Give it a nice hard pressure, sweep upward, and just really flatten out those layers so that the wings will stay really, really squeezed together. You want all the layers just really as compact as you can get them in a paper airplane. Now we're going to take this edge and put it down to our center crease. And it's going to look just like that. Make a nice sharp point there. Even in a crease that short, still, I like to start there, sweep up, start there, sweep down. Even in a crease that short, it's a little bit crazy, but you know, accuracy is really, really important in paper airplanes. So let's flip it over. I'm going to do the same thing to this side. Move that down right there. Nice sharp creases. By the way, I'm using 24-pound paper here. It's always a good idea when the first time through a plane to use 20-pound paper. It's just lighter, it's easier to fold when you get a lot of layers going. I just have this laying around. It's what I use for my performance planes that I travel around the country with. So I have a lot of that. So now we're going to make a wing crease. Before we make the wing crease, the locking fold. Now, here's where it gets a little sketchy. There's a part of this locking crease that might rip on you. So let's open this up, open up the center crease. And what we're going to do is move this little flap up over those two folds there. I'm going to move in a little bit here. And this flap, because of the way the paper is layered, there's really not quite enough slack to get up over here and then remake the center crease. So what we're going to do is just start to bend that up. And you're going to see a little crinkle start to form there. And you're going to let that crinkle form. And I'm not really going to make the crease all the way straight across until I get that going up, and then I'm going to remake the center crease, and that crinkle is going to add just enough slack so this will lay flat. So that turned out exactly the way I wanted it. Let me show you what happens. This is what can happen here. So if I flatten this guy out and I move this all the way up and try to not have a crinkle, here's where perfection will kill you. If I try to not have a crinkle here, let me straighten that out. And I move it all the way up, and I start to fold in half. Chances are I'm going to get, I got the layer stretched out just enough. I'm not getting a rip forming there. That's a miracle fold. Usually you'll get a little rip going right there, right there where those layers meet. And I get a particularly tough piece of paper here that stretched well and it didn't rip. So I got lucky. There's a little tiny bit of a rip going there, but a lot of times you'll get a rip about halfway down. Not a big deal, but if you let the crinkle happen and then work the crinkle and let the crinkle kind of help you wrap around, it works better. I'm going to zoom zoom out just a skosh so you can see this wing crease happen. So to make the wing crease, we're going to start close to the nose. The crease is going to rake up as we go this way, and what you want to do is start moving the wing over. And you'll see that as you bring the wing layer close to the back of the plane, you'll see a little triangle form there. Keep pulling the wing down until that triangle just disappears. And right there is where you make the crease. And I press down all along that curve there, and I'm going to press and sweep to the rear and press and sweep to the front. And notice that it doesn't land exactly on the nose. You're going to be a little bit off the nose, which is okay. It's actually preferable. When you transfer this technique to the world record plane, you're going to need that little bit of gap right there. Okay, let's flip it over. Going to make the other wing match. And again, I'm taking some time here in lining up exactly where the crease ended at the nose. I'm just kind of pressing down with a fingernail right there where that crease is going to start. That gives me a good starting point. Rolling over, and really the critical thing is these two corners. You want this corner and this corner to really tightly line up. That's so that the wings will be exactly the same width back here. You want it to all be one surface at the back of the plane. That's just good folding technique. If you always keep an eye on those rear corners, the plane's wings come out the most symmetrical you can make them. So get those corners going, get the front going there. And again, I'm going to slowly keep those corners lined up and then slowly press this flat, sweep to the back, and then press it flat and sweep to the front. And I kind of sneak up on making wing creases and just keep moving it until it gradually turns into a crease, rather than just like slamming it down and swiping and making a crease. Just really just kind of keep those corners lined up and just keep working it as the corners lined up and press it and then sweep. So that's one way to make more accurate creases. Now the plane is complete. A couple of adjustments for this paper airplane or almost any other paper airplane that are going to help it fly better. The first one is dihedral angle. And what we're going to do is make the wings slope upward. And if the wings are sloping upward, that's going to make the plane, if it gets rocked to one side, the weight will swing back under. The body of the plane swings back under the wings, and it's just like a pendulum, it swings back to neutral. So what we do is we hang on to it right there where all of the layers meet, right where our little lock is, and put a finger on one side and a thumb on the other, and we're just going to lift it up until we pinch it together. I'm lifting right there where all the big layers are at the front of the plane. And then I let go. And now look, I've got positive dihedral angle, just like that. If it gets rocked to one side, it'll swing back to neutral. Now, it's very tempting at this point to throw the plane because you've got a completed plane. And if you were to throw it right now, it would fly out, nose over, and crash. And this is where most people come to the conclusion that they can't fold a good paper airplane. You've just folded a very good paper airplane. You've just thrown it before you've done the final and one of the most important adjustments, which is a little up elevator right back here. So if you're new to paper airplane making, I'm going to suggest that you put the up elevator in right here at the corner of the wings. It's just easier to get to. It's a little easier to manipulate. And the reason for up elevator is that we've got all of this weight forward here, all of these layers forward, and you've got all these lifting surface behind here. So the plane is going to naturally nose over. Like I said, before you make that adjustment, if you throw it, it's going to go out there and nose over and crash. And that's a good sign. It means you've folded a very good plane, because all gliders need a lot of weight in the nose to recapture some speed that's lost to drag. So if the nose points down, I'm getting a gravity assist. I'm heading toward the ground, picking up speed. That's good. But if you don't do anything else, it just goes bonk. So what you do is add a little up elevator. The air goes down the wings. When the plane gets just enough speed, enough air is reflecting off of those elevators to push the tail down, which lifts the nose up. And that keeps the plane at a nice even glide. It's gaining speed and the nose stays up when everything is just balanced. When you've got just enough up elevator to balance where the center of gravity is, you get a nice level flight. If your plane starts porpoising, you've got too much up elevator. If it's not nosing up enough, if it's not achieving a level glide, you don't have enough. So you just keep adjusting the up elevator based on what the plane is doing. You're never really finished adjusting a paper airplane. That's important to remember. We made adjustments to the world record plane after every single throw on World Record Day. You're never finished adjusting a paper airplane. You're always looking at it, trying to improve it. So, basic up elevator idea. Now, we're going to get really tricky here. We're going to play with left and right rudder. And in the same way, if you adjust the up elevators, you bend the back of the plane up to make the nose go up. Bending the rudder right here to go left and right is, how do you correct for a turn? Let's say your plane is flying straight and it turns off to the right. And so as it's flying, it's going that way. So the nose is going to the right. So what you want to do to correct that is bend in just right here. Just bend in a tiny bit of left rudder. And now the air will go down the body of the plane and hit that bend and get kicked this way, which pushes the tail that way. And if the tail is getting pushed that way, look what happens to the nose. The whole plane is rotating around the center of gravity. So if the tail pushes that way, the nose goes that way. So this is the air traveling down here, hitting that slight little bend. Air gets reflected this way, the tail gets pushed that way, the nose comes back to the left. So if I'm making a right turn, I add left rudder, which is bending the back of the plane right here to the left, just a little bit. And the same thing for right turns. If I want to get my plane to turn right, I add some right rudder. So here's the big tip. If whatever you want the front of the plane to do, that's what you do to the back of the plane. Up to go up, down to go down, left to go left, and right to go right. This is the steering wheel. The back of the plane is the steering wheel. Let me zoom back out just here just a little bit. So steering wheel right here at the back of the plane. Up to go up, down to go down, left to go left, right to go right. And all the fine tuning happens right here where the wings meet the body of the plane. The Phoenix, broader winged, more locked together than the classic Dart, a lot less drag than the classic Dart, and a lot more lift. Really great plane to fly, flies really well indoors or out. It's the Phoenix.